Okay, so yeah, Michael, since we are talking about this, I don't necessarily want the spotlight just to be on me. So, how do you approach accessibility with your day-to-day work?
Right. I approach accessibility in a way that I think we can all do something to help to make a better, more digitally accessible world. We all have things that we can do. I There was this meme. Have you ever seen this meme? 10 things that require zero talent. So
Yes.
the sentiment of it I love, because the sentiment of it is, while you're busy trying to up your skill set and learn, let's say in our world, learn Python or Excel or SQL, at the same time, there are things that you could do, bring to the workplace, um, having a good work ethic, being passionate, be coachable. So there are 10 things, that you can do without having to learn a new programming language or whatever. And I just love that sentiment. It's because it's things that we can do starting right now. And I try to apply that sentiment to accessibility, because so if you and I, let's say we're going to make a meme that said, let's say, 10 things you could do to make a digital world more accessible with no front end development experience, what would they be? And I would say that, well, people like us, not you, you are a front end developer, but people in our audience that aren't that can do things simply like, if you're working on pages and LMS courses and things, if you put an image in, put an alt tag.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Gonna
Yeah.
stop you right there. Alt tags.
Uh-huh.
This is the other thing I find people get a little bit jargony. You and I
Okay.
know what an alt tag is,
Yes.
but this also I think helps avoiding jargon. Alternative text for an
Right.
image.
Yeah.
So yeah, breaking it down, communicating with folks. Alt
Right.
tags are great. Super important. Super important.
I mean, in
What
new
else do
in
you have?
LMSs today, they don't even you don't even have to write the code. They'll give you a box that
It's
says
great. Yeah.
alternative tag, and you can say a little bit about the picture.
Hmm.
I've learned throughout the years that there are people out there that could use these things. It was a very humbling experience for me to study semantic HTML, which is HTML that describes a bit more what goes into an HTML page. And the more I learned about headers and footers and the a nav element, I might be talking over some people, but just bear with me. I just by putting those things in, I realized, there are people out here who might be consuming the web page I'm making that perhaps cannot see. I'm making it easier for these people. They could actually consume this page. Now, without these elements, the page looks fine to the average person. But with these elements, other people can access this page and consume it. And it made me really feel, it humbled me to realize that there are people that you forget about that can use these extra steps. So semantic HTML, alt tags, I would say try not to upload a PDF if it's just like scanned images, like if it's not actually readable. Like that's something we could all try to do, make accessible PDFs. Um, Figure out the proper contrasting colors. If you're going to make a web page that has two colors, make sure they contrast correctly, meaning they complement, I'm sorry, two complementary colors. So the background color and your text are meant to be used together. And
Yeah.
anyone could do that, right? It's not something you need to be a programmer to be able to do. Don't use images of text. Actually, put the text into the page.
Hmm.
I mean,
Hmm.
these are some things, and maybe you and I could share some docs, but
Yeah, let's put some of those together for your audience. That'd be great.
these are the things that novices, people all throughout the spectrum of building courses and pages that might not have a computer science degree or front end programmers, we can still do these things. And we have to build habits and we have to know what these things are. So when we encounter them in a page or a course, it's worth the effort. And I think it's worth the effort because one, someone's going to appreciate it, and you might never know who they are, but someone's thankful that you made the page more accessible. And two, it just helps the page in terms of being found and SEO, and it's more searchable. It works better with all the other pages on the internet. So those two reasons should be enough to try to make pages as accessible as possible. What do you think?
Uh, First, I love your story. It sounds like our interest in digital accessibility is rooted in similar perception. Like we you were learning HTML, and as you did, it really revealed to you why you do things a certain way. But with like WYSIWYG editors, so what you see is what you get. That's a silly little acronym, but I love it. WYSIWYG editors. They're getting a lot more sophisticated nowadays, so that um, you really can correct these things just like you would if you were composing a Word document. And they, as you said, alt tags are there. One other point that I'll make that I've seen a lot, especially in learning management systems, um, tables.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes you see people put tables in because you can control the widths of columns and it makes things lay out very nicely and it appeals to you visually. But if a user is not perceiving that page visually and relies on assistive technology, that table, if it's not strictly for tabular data, is going to really mess with a screen reader.
Right.
So don't use tables for page layout. And at the same time, there's another conflict here. An image of a table is also very hard to describe with an alt tag. So, they're making sure that the content of your page is actually in the text of the page is like that's a big one.
Yeah.
I love everything else you said. Headers, getting to know headers and the way that they should be organized. That helps screen readers navigate to sections of your page for users who need them. Uh, Contrast, ultra important for users with disabilities who don't rely on screen readers. It's hard for someone with old eyes to perceive some things. For instance, even young eyes. I have a lot of difficulty. Advertisements on the subway, for instance. I have become so aware of bad contrast, like a light blue on a yellow background. That's so hard to read. We can all relate to that experience. Think of someone who does not have perfect vision trying to parse that. I think that the points that you made right now, they are the top ones. And I'd say if you can nail like these top five or so issues, you're going to take care of 90% of the problems.
And I want to close on this because I think it's important. It's another sort of thing, a revelation that I had sort of. If you're going to take the time to learn basic HTML and CSS, and you've learned enough to make basic websites and course pages and things like that, and then you journey a little bit more into what we're talking about, the semantic HTML, things that you don't necessarily need to have a page function, but the more that it's there, the easier it is for more people to read, the more accessible it is. Here's the thing. Going the extra level of making it with the semantic HTML by putting in the nav and the header and footer and doing it that way is so worth the effort. It's another 10% of effort, but that 10% of more effort translates to however many new people can access that page well. It's such a thing that's worth the extra effort. That's my point. Like my revelation is making an HTML page with semantic HTML and doing it correctly for the peripherals that you're talking about, the readers and such. It's not that much extra, and you get used to it, and you could build templates. Mm-hmm. And what you're creating with that 10, 20% more work could just make it so much easier for so many more people. It's worth the effort, I guess, is my closing comment.
I love that.
Yeah, yeah, it's worth the effort. Take the time to make a page as accessible as possible, and it's worth just in satisfaction, just knowing that more people can consume it.
Yep.
It's worth the effort.